Larson. The agenda for today, we'll start with an introduction. We'll go through the housekeeping rules for our webinar, quick company overview, and then the body of the webinar, the slide presentation, and a live demo. And then we'll summarize, and then we'll have a Q&A with closing information, and then a closing information. The housekeeping rules that we use, all attendees are muted for the duration of the webinar. If you should experience any problems when joining or during the webinar, use the chat window highlighted over to the right. You can also use that window to post your questions. You can post them at any time during the webinar, but they won't be answered. We'll answer the questions at the end of the webinar, or if time runs out, we'll follow up with an email. For those of you who aren't familiar with Larson Software, we're based in Houston, Texas. We've been around since 1984. We're known kind of as experts in CGM and graphics. We develop powerful, innovative CGM graphics software based on open standards. We promote CGM usage with a free CGM viewer called VisX Reader, which you can download on the front page of our website. We're a member of the CGM Open Foundation, and Larson's products simplify the graphics workflow for geologists, geophysicists, tech pubs, professionals, and engineers. For our webinar today, the objectives are going to be to communicate and demonstrate some of the unique benefits of CGM Studio. We're going to also demonstrate the features designed specifically for the geoscience community. We're going to demonstrate the flexible and easy-to-use Montage tool set, discuss and review the import, export, print capabilities, and demonstrate, lastly, a new part of Studio, which is the integration with Microsoft Office. And then finally, we'll summarize the benefits of CGM Studio. The generation of Montage graphics is a significant task in the geoscience industry. The process requires efficiency and high-quality output. Due to the nature of geoscience data, not only is it do you need high resolution, but it's very detailed information, and the images tend to be very large and sometimes very hard to work with in ordinary common off-the-shelf commercial graphic software. The production process requires, and also part of this, the process requires bringing together disparate information from industry standard software. By that I mean, geoscience software tools that are used in this industry and the file formats they use. And then it also requires the published format output options to also be compatible with industry devices and industry requirements. And all of these factors then necessitate software design specifically for the geoscience industry to accomplish this task. So what are the requirements? Well, the obvious that it needs powerful montaging functionality. It needs ability to create large format, high resolution images. Again, the images we deal with in the geoscience industry tend to be large and complex. We need support in the software for industry standard file formats. CGM and PDF are important ones, but there's others as well. We need compatibility with industry standard software like Kingdom, Landmark, Schlumberger products like GeoFrame, and then products from Paradigm as well, to mention the main ones. There's others, but these are some of the main ones that I'm sure you're all familiar with. So let's look at the main functions. Well, the first is the ability to import various formats, CGM being one of the key ones, because that's but we also have the ability to bring in others like PDF, DWG, DXF, and various other formats, which we'll review all those in detail. It has the ability to drag and drop files onto the Montage layout. It has a key feature that reduces rendering time. Again, when you're dealing with very large graphic images, you need ways to deal with those so that you don't bog down the process. And then another key function is layout templates, and this is the ability to have preset information, or a template that has information that's repeating from montage to montage, like for instance your branding information, or having a consistent presentation format. And then it also has industry-specific symbols, oil well symbols, and geological patterns is also part of the functionality. And then another very key and powerful feature is we have the ability to edit CGM graphics directly in Studio without leaving Studio. And that would be important when dealing with, again, the image you get, CGM image you may get from your seismic interpretation software may have information that's not relevant to your presentation. You may want to strip off or change or make some text size bigger to make it easier to read in your presentation. Well, we can do that inside Studio with the CGM editor. And then we have the integrated print functions. We have ability to print directly to Windows plotters with our proprietary printing engine, and deal with ability with very large images, but that's built right into Studio. But then we also have the option to interface with the Larson network print server in environments where large enterprise environments, we have pools of plotters we can offload to a network print device. And then we have the Microsoft integration, and that's the ability to bring CGMs directly into Microsoft Word or PowerPoint. So let's drill down a little bit on the import again. Again, we have the import and editing of CGM files. We have also the ability to bring in CAD formats like DWG and DXF. These sometimes we find that map data is only available in DWG or DXF. So we have support for that built in. We also can take PDF files, and these are vector PDFs, so we can deal with them as vector images rather than just simple images. But one of the unique features we have in CGM Studios to take PDFs, if you've ever worked with well logs, a PDF coming from a well log where the pages or where the well log is split into pages, we can import that directly into Studio and stitch those pages back together into a seamless image and make a well log easier to work with. And then we have support for all the standard Windows files, enhanced meta files, Windows meta files, and then raster files, TIFF, JPEG, PNG, GIF, Windows bitmaps. And then for export, we can export a CGM, we can export a Windows meta file, we can export PDFs again, and then the popular raster formats, TIFF, PNG, with control over the resolution when you're writing them. If you want to output a low-res image just for like a thumbnail, so to speak, you can do that, or you can make it very high resolution. For instance, if you got to use it in a presentation or something, you can get high resolution. The layout capabilities, and by layout we mean the ability to bring together all these disparate images onto a common canvas. To do that, to make that easier to do, we have a ability to turn on a grid, and that grid has magnetic properties. By that I mean you can snap objects, turn on snap to grid, and snap the corners of objects to grid points, or if you're drawing lines, put those lines on grid points, or positioning other objects precisely on grid points. And then we have a custom page setup, and that's the ability to set the page size, and that's the page size not of your target printer, but of the working area, the layout of the canvas area that we're going to use to assemble our montage. For the montage tools or graphics tools in CGM Studio, we have a library function, and that's a library of industry-specific symbols, oil-filled symbols, well symbols, and then we have a library of geological patterns that are built in, but also have the ability to add custom patterns. And then again, we increase the productivity by having the ability to directly edit a CGM file. That can be very useful if you've got a geoscience image that you need to put in, but the fonts aren't large enough to read, and you can enlarge them. Or you can also take off parts of the information to make in other words, only get the relevant information that you need from it, and turn off all the extraneous information that may clutter up a presentation. Let's say you may have borders or such on coming from your geoscience software. Well, we can take those off easily and touch up the images directly inside Studio. And then we have a feature that makes working with very large images much simpler to deal with, and that's the ability we render images on the fly to bitmaps so we can work with them easily, or we can do them in high resolution and render them on the fly if necessary. But we'll show that in the demo again in more detail. And then we have the ability to add text and graphical elements through the drawing toolbar shown on the right. There's various shapes you can add to your drawing, add text, add symbols, and then control the attributes of those through the attribute toolbar below those. For printing, again, we have an integrated printing so that you can print directly from Studio, directly to large format plotters. And again, we have our proprietary print engine built in to CGM Studio that can deal with very large images without loss of information. But then we also have the ability for those of you that work with the Larson Network Print Server to export files directly to hot directories on your network for submitting to workgroup plotters. And lastly, the last key function is the ability to seamlessly insert CGMs of montages or any CGM directly into Microsoft Word or PowerPoint. And this could be a very useful feature for taking high-resolution geoscience images and putting them right into project or reports or presentations for projecting on the screens, let's say, in PowerPoint. And then when you're inserting them, we also have the ability to control presentation of that image inside Microsoft Office. So let's go to the demo part. I'm opening up Studio here now, and you see the Studio main window with the canvas area there in the center. The first thing you're going to want to do is set up that canvas area if it's not already set up for the size of the presentation, anticipated size. And now this doesn't have to be exact because you'll probably want to make it larger than what you want to end up with, because when we export the CGM or print, it'll remove the excessive white space, so not to worry about making it too precise. Now here it's set up as 34 by 34, which is probably going to be small. What I like to do, and this is, I'm going to show you the template feature now too. I'm going to open a template that's set up by a 34 by 56 inch presentation. Now when I open it up, now this shows you the ability to have templates. What that template did is it set the canvas size automatically. It's going to add a border. I've got a placeholder at the top for a title. I've got some text on it and a logo. But that could contain any number of elements, picture elements that you want to put on it. For instance, if there's something that's repeating from montage to montage that you keep using, you could put that in a preset template. Now, for this montage demonstration, I've got an assembly of files, or a group of files in a folder, and I'm going to show you that folder because it's off on my other screen. But I've got a list of files here. I've got 4 or 5 CGMs. I've got a bitmap file. So all those reside in a folder. And now what I'm going to do to create my montage, I'm going to start dragging these to the canvas area. Okay, I'm going to position them just kind of approximately where I think I need to be. Here's our seismic section. And then our, let's see, I've got a log cross section. Position that. I've got a base map with image data on it. Let's position that. First thing I want to show you here before I arrange all these, but we have this feature called the, if I right click, I see that we're rendering that as a bitmap image, but we also have the ability to render it directly to the screen. And the reason we do it this way is so, for instance, if you want to work with the image for precise positioning of lines or shading areas, you're going to want high resolution. You want to zoom in and high resolution. But if you're just working with layout, you don't want to continually redraw that. So that's why we have what we call the bitmap or the real mode. And so now when I move it or zoom or whatever, it's not redrawing. So that can facilitate and make working with very large images much easier to do. So next in a montage process, you usually want to kind of position things. I'm going to kind of take these images here, and I did a group select here, kind of moving them, kind of aligning them. You could also resize them by taking the handle, but in this case I'm just going to leave them like they are. So now we've got a basic montage layout. The next thing we may want to do, I said we had editing capability, so let's show that now. Let's take that well cross-log, our cross section, and let's take it and let's change some things on it. You'll notice that, first of all, you notice how everything else is grayed out, and that's because it's disabled. Only the target CGM here is editable. So I'll zoom on it, use the font resizing tool here. That's a bit big, but okay. So anyway, so you could do things like change text. Let's do something else like on this, I don't like these blue lines here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color of those blue lines. I did it. You notice I've done what's called a group select. When you hold the Shift key down and select several elements, you group select, and that means we can change the color of them with one keystroke. Okay, so here it changed the color of those now to orange. So anyway, so that's the editing capability that can be very useful again when you're exporting a file from your Geoscience software. You have to deal, it is what it is, and sometimes you want to make it more relevant to your presentation, strip out extra information. In this case we didn't take anything out, but we just made some changes that made it more presentable or relevant to our presentation. So now that we're done, so we'll right click and save, and now it's going to make a copy, so you won't lose your original in case you make a mistake and have to go back to it and revert. Next thing we may want to do in this particular case, I know that this particular photographic image relates to this well log, and so I'm going to do that. I'm going to show how this outcrop here is related to this bit of information over here on this well log. Now you notice it came in with the arrows on, but I've got arrowheads, but I could, for instance, take those arrowheads off, just have straight lines if I prefer, or change the maybe change them solid lines. I kind of like dotted, so let's leave those. You could make those lines thicker if you want to. That looks a bit thick, but that looks pretty good right there. So we can add lines and text to our images, or lines. I haven't added any text yet, but let's go ahead and do that now. I've got that placeholder up here. Now I put some text before, but you can go back and simply replace it, and what I'll do is off screen I've got some more text already typed just to make this faster. Okay, so there I've got my title for my presentation. I'm going to change the text color to red. And I'm using not using the mouse now, I'm using the left and right arrow key. It's going to be used for precise nudging the image around. And then let's go ahead and add some more text. This is going to be, oops, wrong text. Okay. Okay, and that's a bit big. We had it. Let's cut it down. Let's change our text to get back to black. Let's also turn off the border on that. I kind of think that looks better like that. And okay, so there we have the ability to add text, control the fonts, have it with or without borders. The text can also have some things like you can have background on it. That doesn't look too good, so I'm going to turn that back off, but you can see the point there. Now some of the other things you may want to do is you may want to, for instance, we said we had ability to put in, we had geological pattern support, but let's take a case where we maybe want to fill an area, and but let's change it up a bit. First of all, we show how we could make it transparent. But what I want for this, I really want that to be some kind of geological symbol. So what I did is I just simply changed the pattern to one of these geological patterns here, and you can actually change, for instance, the color of that pattern too, for instance. So you have quite a bit of control over those, the coloring and the filling of those images. But we also might want to take, like, put a circle on this base map here. Suppose that base map is kind of related to this image over here, and we wanted to circle that area where that section is or something. Could do that, but for this I want it to be solid. I want it to be transparent, but I want a better color for it that will show up on that green. Okay, so there I've taken an orange fill with translucency and showing how you, and in the shape, and showing you how you can nicely highlight areas too with it. Now, one other industry-specific thing is the ability to add symbols from our library. And we've got these well log symbols, which we might want to put on this section here. So we would do that like this, simply go and select them, position them. Now they kind of look low res there, but again, these symbols actually, when they're coming in, are actually CGM files. So if you want to do a real rendering mode, you can. Whoops. That's not what I wanted. Real, okay. So anyway, so you can render those as vector images now if you need to see them. You can also control the background, whether the filled area is transparent or not. So now that we've got a montage done, the first thing I recommend doing is saving our work, and we'll save it to a layout file. And for that, I'm going to call this layout file Montage2, save it. Now, the layout files, again, are important. You've saved your work. If I want to come back in a week and redo this, I could simply reopen that layout file, go and, let's say, delete one of the images, reinsert a new one, change the text, lines, any of the elements of this drawing can be simply edited at a high level by just reopening and modifying the layout. And then you may want to print, and to do that, if you want to use the built-in printing, we go to the print icon. It takes a minute to prepare that image. So when you get to the print screen, you'll select your plotter. You'll probably want it 1:1 scale. Select whether it's portrait or landscape. Well, I know that this plotter is a 34-inch plotter, and my presentation is too big to fit on that, so it shows you that it's going to want to panel it. This little icon here showing it's going to try to panel it. Well, we don't want to do that probably. We want to, let's go into landscape mode. It's going to flip it now, and you notice 1:1 panel, so that means it'll all fit on your paper without having to break it up into strips. So let's just cancel out of there because I don't necessarily want to print right now. But then the other option you have is to export it. Now, we could export, one of the uses for exporting is just to save it separate CGM or PDF. Let's say you want to send to somebody else that doesn't have a ability to deal with CGMs. We could use a PDF file or one of these raster formats. If you go to raster, you could control the resolution there. Or you may also want to, for those of you that use the Larson network print server, you could export it to a hot directory for direct printing to a workgroup plotter. So that is the CGM, the montaging capabilities. The next thing I'd like to move on to is the Microsoft Word integration. And let's take the case where we have a report. We've got a bunch of text and we want to insert a seismic section in there. What you can do is you go to the insert tool, and when Studio is installed on your machine, on your workstation, you'll notice that there will be a new insert button up there. You'll see the Larson little logo and it says Insert CGM. So if we click on that, oops, click on that, okay, and I'll select the seismic section there. Here's where you can control some of the editing or the changing. You can change the orientation. You can convert the colors. You may want to rotate it. You can control the resolution, whether or not you want the background to be transparent or not. You may want to put it right over text. In that case, you'd want it to be transparent so stuff could show through. So let's select it. Watch it come in now. So now you notice it comes in inserted right in that Word document. Also, I want to show that I'm going to use the Zoom, Microsoft Zoom here, and show you that's a high resolution image. So you zoom up on it and you can see that we've imported a high resolution vector image right into Word. Now if you save that document, this is another important feature. If you save that document and send it to someone else, they don't need the Studio or the CGM add-in for Microsoft Office. That's a self-contained, all the information is encapsulated inside that document. And the same holds for PowerPoint. If you insert it into PowerPoint, you can take it with you, put it on your laptop for a presentation or something. It's self-contained in that Word or PowerPoint file. So let's just summarize quickly before we go to the Q&A. We showed how we can import industry standard from industry standard software with formats from of CGM and PDF from common geoscience tools like Paradigm and Landmark. We can create montages quickly and easy with the drag and drop functionality. We can add to it with industry specific symbols and patterns. We have an editor, a powerful CGM editor that allows you to edit the components or the images going into this montage. We have built-in direct print support for all your Premiere output devices. And then lastly, we have the ability to, this is new in CGM Studio 10.0, to put CGM output directly into Microsoft Office for use in reports and digital display. So let's move to the Q&A now and see if we have any questions.
Hi Don, this is David. We do have some questions, so hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yes, I can.
Okay, we had an initial question about the templates. I believe I did answer it through the question panel, but it was around where can we find the templates. So I think that there aren't any pre-built templates. Is that correct? That you actually create your own based on your own requirement. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Their templates is really just the key there is templates are a use of the layout file. In other words, you have to create those yourself, and they're quite simple to create. But there's something you create yourself by using the layout file. In other words, you go into Studio, you make it, and you save layout.
Okay. So the next question is, are there any limitations to the size or dimensions of a montage?
Well, technically, the size of the canvas can only be 10,000 inches by 10,000 inches, which is ridiculously large.
Yeah.
But so there's virtually no limit.
Okay. The next one is, what's the current status of embedding maps from Petrosys, with particular reference to maps that include embedded raster images that are displayed with partial translucency?
Well, yeah, I know we're compatible with the Petrasys CGM files.
Is that something
That's a
you might want to take offline with the...
that is you know, we'd have to look at it. We're you know, the standard CGM, I could say the CGM standard has the ability to do that. Um, you know, we would have to have an example um, of that.
Okay.
But that would probably be that's a technical question, and yeah, we could take that one offline. I could.
Yeah. The asker's just put his email down, so we will respond offline to that one.
Okay, great.
Okay. So next question, does CGM Studio support copy and paste from other applications?
Yes, it does. It's you know, if you've got, you know, let's say a PowerPoint presentation and it's got some graphics in it, and you want to move that back over to Studio, you can copy and paste, or you can, if you've got a Word document open, you can copy and paste. Virtually any Windows application that supports clipboard, you can do that.
Okay, great. The next question is, can we edit very large or huge seismic base maps as well as with the help of CGM Studios? With CGM Studio, I suppose it depends on the format. Am I right?
Well, yeah, of course it would, but I'm going to assume here that that's we're talking about a CGM, and yes, you can edit very large files in CGM Studio. I've seen, you know, very large seismic base maps, well cross-lug sections, so no known limitations there.
Yeah, that's what the big advantage really is. You have that CGM editing capability built in to CGM Studio, so you don't have to go back to the originator of the software to do that. You can do it all in CGM Studio.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, are there any limits, another question, sorry, are any limits to the file size that I can import?
No, there's virtually again, no limits, no built-in limits. You know, there are some physical limits like the size of your memory and such. I've seen 2 gigabyte CGM files imported into Studio on a machine that had plenty of memory and disk space. So there's no built-in limits, but there are always, again, physical limits.
Okay, yeah, I suppose it's down to your machine and other RAM and obviously mainly.
Yeah, that's right.
We have another question here, this time on PDF. Can PDF files be edited in CGM Studio? I'm assuming vector ones.
Yeah, that's right. You can. When we import a PDF file, it's turned into a CGM file, a vector CGM. So if it's a vector PDF, it will become a vector CGM. So that is possible, yes.
Yeah, that's something we didn't demonstrate, but again, probably it's something you could go offline with the asker if they want to test that out.
Sure, be glad to work with them on that.
Yeah, I think we've done this in other webinars with PDF, is that some of the older PDFs, kind of going back quite a lot of time, didn't support vectors, but certainly new PDF output does support vector as a rule, doesn't it, I think, Don?
Yeah, yes it does.
Okay, we've got, so I think you did cover this, but it's another question about the symbols and patterns. Can you add your own to the library, or is it just the ones that you provided?
No, and that's a recent feature that was added. We can add custom patterns. In other words, there's well, there's 2 levels. So one, you can add your own symbols in that symbol. You know, we had that symbol library. You can put your own symbols in the symbol folder. They're simply EMF files. So you can add your own, but the fill patterns, you can also add custom patterns, which are bitmaps, which can be, you know, small, 32 by 32 or up to
Right.
256 by 256.
Okay. So you can,
So yeah, that's
yeah,
doable.
you can do both. That's great. And we've got another question here, which is, have you, obviously when you purchase the software, you have the option to take maintenance and so forth, so you'll get updates, but do you have any ideas what the future enhancements for the product might be?
Well, we're always keen on feedback. You know, there are at the moment there are no. The last enhancement we did is add in custom bitmap patterns. There are no current enhancements, but we're very open to feedback, and we hope that from this webinar we'll get some feedback and tell us kind of things we need to be doing to make it better.
Yeah, well, you're currently at version 10, so, and that's not been out that long, has it? So I think you are kind of planning the next version. So like I said, this webinar might give you some good feedback for version 11.
Yes, yes, we hope so.
Yeah, I think, again, I think there's another question coming about some suggestions. So again, probably we can take that offline with this particular asker of the question. So I think that's it for the Q&A session. Thanks, Don, and thanks for the presentation. It was really good. Thank you. And I'll pass it back to you just to close off.
Okay, so thank you everyone for attending. You can discover more about Larson software at www.cgmlarson.com. A link to the webinar will be published via email. It'll be sent shortly after we close this webinar, and all the materials too will be available on a slide share too if you want to see the slides and the recording, and follow us on Twitter. And thank you very much for attending.